Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry about that. I just got into a slight glitch. Okay, I'm back. Hi, Sidil. Good evening. I don't know. I got into a slight glitch there a while ago. What I'm going to do is just go straight into it because of that little glitch there. David and Anthony, good evening. How are you guys?
Good evening.
Hey, good evening to you. How are you?
Well, I'm not bad. I'm not bad. I hope it's not the BBC because the BBC know that I'm going to talk about them today, that they didn't try to pull a fast one. And I'm trying to say, how are you guys? How was everything?
All good. Well, I thought you were halfway to Westminster or something,
No, I was trying to reach there, but there's a nice little weather outside, which is fantastic, But I want to say good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Buona noche, citizen Buoco in Instagram, those on Facebook and Instagram, YouTube as well. How are you? Guys, have you had a good week so far? It is getting back to normal in the UK, isn't it?
Well, it's been, I suppose you could say it is getting back to some sort of normality in terms of people getting out and about and businesses. And also, we've heard this evening reported about jobs being in hospitality picking up. So I think, that all bodes well for the future. I mean, that's what we want to see.
Actually, something I heard as well, they said in regards to that, they said the areas which were affected very harshly, they're actually coming up back, with lots of bits there. And yes, here we go. Hey, good evening. How are you, Siobhan?
Hi, I'm good. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you live and direct. We're just talking to David now. So, David, how's your week so far?
Yeah, same old. It doesn't feel like Groundhog Day, but it's just the same kind of approach to life, I guess. I'm enthusiastic about the uptake of the vaccine, which we'll talk on a bit later on. But yeah, I think we're getting back to a state of some sort of normality, whatever that means going forward.
Yes.
But yeah, it's good, all good.
Awesome. And Siobhan, and for yourself?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm enjoying the first week back in gym classes. So I've missed that. I realized how actually important that was to my kind of overall mental health.
Wow.
Yeah, and I'm not a great person at working out. Like I was doing the whole online Zoom class thing, and that was just about okay. But then once the gyms reopened, there was less of that because people went to a gym. But I am so unmotivated. I have to go to a class. And so, yeah, went back on Monday when it opened, and I think it's helping.
David,
otherwise, it's Groundhog Day, isn't it?
David, do you think she needs to do that 21-day challenge? Turn it into a habit.
Turning into a habit. Well, the first step is getting back into the gym, and that's the first step to any kind of success. So yeah, I wish you well, and I think it's great. My wife went on the midnight of the day of the gym's opening. She slept like a log the next day, so I obviously had to deal with the getting the kids to school duties. But yeah, in fact, it was great that that people got back into the gym, and this has been a long time coming. But obviously, before that day, you could still go to the gym, you could work outside, but it's the gym classes, and I think that motivation is key to sort of fitness and also mental well-being, as you said. And it's getting back to that state of normality, what you're used to. I think that's the key.
Well, I keep doing my walk and just motivate myself in the park. I'm trying to say, with squirrels and everybody like that. And sometimes they try to do a runner on me sometimes, and I tell you, I believe that I know their names by heart now. All of them. But ladies and gentlemen, listen, guys, I want to go straight into this, and this wasn't on my topic today, but I just saw this thing blow up today about Inquiry criticized BBC over deceitful Diana interview, and Martin Bashir. That's the man who this is a guy who makes some wonderful scoop. You got Michael Jackson, you got Princess Diana, but now the BBC seem to be very much involved in some fake business. Anthony, what's going on there?
Yeah, well, I mean, this is a real disaster, a PR disaster for the BBC. And rightly so. I mean, really heads should roll if there were, clearly Martin Bashir at the time used his position to deceive, lie in order to get this particular interview. And, really the sad thing for me watching the Panorama program this evening was his decisions, his actions purely selfishly to get an interview actually change the course of somebody's life and those around that individual. I mean, I'm pretty sure that obviously I don't have a crystal ball, but Diana's direction of travel probably significantly changed as a direct result of Martin Bashir's involvement in actually lying to Earl Spencer to get the initial invitation into Diana.
Yeah.
Earl Spencer, even after his due diligence, checking the legalities of what Martin Bashir had put forward, and was given assurances, and that was the door. That was really the lever that opened the doors to meeting Diana, to that interview. And I think really the BBC, in terms of their integrity as an organisation for truth and open honesty and transparency, tonight they must be wondering how they're going to get themselves out of this one.
Well, I mean, I'm sure, Siobhan, and you're paying your TV license. You pay your TV license, right, Siobhan? Sorry, I didn't put you on the spot there. Some people are very find different ways around it by just not having TV at all. But what's your take on that, Siobhan? According to what Anthony said, the BBC reputation is supposed to be tattered now.
Well, what's always difficult in any of these situations is, of course, the BBC, as they may have been the producer of the program, but obviously as the kind of organization that put it on, right? So it's under the BBC banner. There is some ultimate culpability, but really, in terms of the balance, to what extent is the BBC at fault? I don't know any of the details of what Lord Dyson has discovered, so this is just an open question. It's not actually an opinion. But if it's Bashir who mocked up the documents in order to get that first FaceTime with Earl Spencer, which then led to the introduction and so on and so forth, whilst he is clearly in breach of the BBC rules and standards. My open question, which I'm sure Lord Dyson looked at, is to what extent the BBC itself did not perform its required due diligence, and is that a systemic issue, or is that a one-off? And again, because there's a very big difference, isn't there? If there is a general lax attitude with the BBC, the corporation, because it's trusted employees or trusted production teams that it works with, then that actually is the issue that needs to really be addressed, as well as the fact that apologizing to all of the family and all of those who have been affected. But does that mean it wouldn't have happened anyway? Does that mean that the Princess of Wales would not have wanted to speak publicly? Who knows? But of course, that particular incident, in the way it happened, there was obviously clearly fault, and it should not have happened.
Well, what it says, the BBC fell short of high standards and integrity and transparency over Martin Bashir's 1995 interview. Bashir acted in a deceitful way and faked documents obtained interview, the inquiry said. So the question is, was Martin Bashir operating as an employee, if anything, as the BBC, or is a company sometime which is employed to do this work? BBC and Bashir have both apologized, and the BBC has written to Prince William and Harry, and Meghan will be saying something shortly soon.
Hang on, someone. Sorry to interrupt, but I know David's going to put a comment. This isn't a time to trivialize this. I mean, this is a really serious situation. The actual report and the findings by Lord Dyson are shocking. I mean, let's not make any bones about it. I think when Siobhan reads the findings of what actually has been said, it's, this went right up to Lord Hall, who became the chief exec of the BBC. He actually was the person who did the investigation into the original 1995 report and found there to be nothing wrong, and actually praised Bashir. Now he's actually saying he should have done more. I mean, quite frankly, the whole thing is a complete disaster. I mean, the BBC have been found to be wanting. Their reporter has been found to be wanton and dishonest and deceitful. That's what's come out of it. And the actual report by Lord Dyson says that the BBC themselves acted dishonestly. So, you know, we shouldn't trivialize it by, you know, in terms of the severity, because people's lives were ruined as a consequence of this.
David,
I think that's where you're wrong, to be able to make that direct causal link. I think that it's quite clear from how you've just you know, explained what was discovered by Lord Dyson, that, you know, there is much fault with Bashir himself and with the BBC, in terms of the investigation after the interview was put out there on television. And so, you know, if that's the facts, those are the facts, absolutely. But we also have to be very mindful that there are many things at play in a situation. So it could be 100% that everything that has happened, is a consequence of that, or it could be that it's not. And that's it, you know, so to automatically lump everything together, I think is not being, is not taking the right approach, is how I would say. But again, I make no total conclusion on it, but I just think that we shouldn't always be so quick to just presume that because of A, you get B, C, D, etc.
David, what's your take on this, David?
I think some really good points have been raised on this particular topic. In regards to the event in itself, we've got to remember this was in excess of 25 years ago. And what I would like to know, I think we just touched on this, but whether or not this kind of thought process is still existing in the BBC today. If this kind of condonement of act in the way that information is gathered, in the way that people try to get information and doctor information. I hate using doctoring because that's not the right word, but you know what I mean. It's, you know, putting together a passage of play to try and influence people to do something. If that's still going on, then that needs to be nipped in the bud. I say nipped in the bud, it needs to be dealt with now. And there needs to be actions brought to those people, and those people need to be held accountable for it. So if there are further discretions that have been occurring over time and those people are still within the organization, then they need to be gone, and that needs to be acted on now. And I can't speak on whether that's the case. And I'm not going to say that just because this happened over 25 years ago, it's not an issue. It's a big issue. And I think the big issue here is that, and we alluded to it again, is that families have been fractured. And irrespective of people look at the royal family and say, well, you know, they're the royal family, they're well catered for, looked after. It obviously causes fracture lines by these stories that are perpetuated again and again and again and again for the public. And that's what I think, you know, that we're hearing a story over and again. It sells, it's great, it sounds fantastic. You know, we can hear more about the royal family and the problems that existed over time, and the airing of the dirty linen in the press. I don't think it's great. I think it's really poor that we keep articulating and discussing their particular problems. And I do think that, you know, this needs to just be laid to bed. I mean, for me, there was nothing that could have come of this positively. Okay, I don't know why we can't just look at the people who are in the positions they are in the BBC and say, look, you guys did the wrong things at those particular points in time, and let's not make sure there are no further issues. I'm not saying sweep it under the carpet, but at the same time, I just do think you've got to think about the families that could be affected, because there could be other stories that come out, and they affect those families as well. It's a big problem, and I think we're recreating opening wounds for what gain? Unless people are held to account, unless there is, you know, found to be repetitive behaviour within the BBC, then I don't know what the end game here is. That's the question I would ask.
Can I just ask? Listening to Anthony, I don't know if Anthony is that you believe that. Okay, it is serious. We all gather this is a very serious issue, and it's a lot to do with integrity and the whole essence of what the BBC, which is supposed to be this corporation with reputation and of this high standard. Do you think there should be more than what David is saying, Anthony? Because David is talking that let's use this more like a teaching moment. Is that what you're saying, David? Whereby we ensure that this doesn't happen again?
Yeah, yeah. So you say teaching moment. I want to make sure that the corporation, not just the BBC, but across the board, media in itself, there are people who are able to justify way of means to try and influence people to do things that they may or may not do. Now, the question that was raised earlier was, would Diana have had this interview if it wasn't for Bashir? We will never know the answer to that. But the ways and motives of how that was brought about was wrong. And as I said, if that is repeatable within industry of the media, then that needs to be brought account now. We can't just hold the BBC to account here. We have to hold all media associations to account. I would say that there's potential for this to have occurred before this, and we know this. So you've heard of the hacking of people's phones that occurred. You know, people. This is not an isolated incident. And what I'm trying to say is it isolated to that particular period of time, or is it still going on now? And if it's still going on now, then that's where I have much more of a concern, because it will cause big problems for other people going down the line. And that's what I'm trying to say. Not so much of a learning moment, but let's make sure that this does not happen again.
Anthony, you want more, Anthony?
Well, no. I think, you know, in order that we can move on to another topic, I think that my only concern here is that this incident happened way back. It was investigated by the BBC, Sirius, by the Director General, or the Lord Hall at the time, who was in charge of news. They did look into it. They found they actually knew the evidence back then, but decided to keep it quiet. And for me, I think the real issue is not just the lessons learned, and other to try and make sure that there aren't other issues like this going on, and that the BBC have learned from it. But I think it's the actual implications and the consequences of what's happened back then. As I say, I mean, I don't have a crystal ball, and Siobhan's right. I mean, Diana may have wanted to get her story out there in some shape or form, but the issue is, without Bashir going through Earl Spencer, he would not have had access to Diana, which means that she would potentially not have given the interview to him, which in turn would have had a whole different turn of events. So you're right. It's really, it is important. You know, the BBC should be made to sort themselves out and make sure this doesn't happen. There aren't any more rogue reporters. But I think, as David and Siobhan has also highlighted, I think it's more a question now of, how the BBC to make sure they've learned from it, and they can make sure that this sort of thing never happens again.
Yeah, because a lot of people, lives have been affected. Private Secretary, Harry, William as well. Natural Beauty on Instagram said the media is the most powerful entity on the earth. They have the power to make the innocent guilty and the guilty innocent. That's power. The media control the minds of the masses. The news runs on propaganda. We'll return to a regular program after these messages. Think about that. And that's, sorry, sure.
No, I mean, but that's always been true. In terms of, it is all about news, right? How things are communicated, what tone, what information is provided, what isn't. The printing press was the greatest invention ever, because it could spread news so quickly, right? And that's always true. And I actually remember that there was a James Bond movie, and where they'd gone from the traditional, villains to a it must have been sometime in the 90s, so a very modern type of villain. And it was the head of a big, massive media organization, and the control that they could have. And I remember watching at the time, because I'm a massive James Bond fan, and it was Pierce Brosnan. And kind of being like, oh, that's kind of like a little bit fanciful, isn't it? And actually now I think about it, and especially at the time that was written, those writers were actually really quite progressive in actually putting that out there in this big, flashy, action-packed film, because it's very true that those who have control of not just the narrative, but the ways in which to amplify that narrative, have a really big sway on life. But now we're moving to that kind of individual power through your Twitters, your Facebooks, as we are on tonight, and all of those. And it's changed the balance, but it hasn't changed how quickly a story can take flight and how quickly a position can amplify and take over.
That's interesting. And strangely enough, Martin Bashir has left the BBC. So therefore, I think he quickly took flight.
he was going to be sacked anyway, so he just jumped before he was pushed.
Yeah, but these thing goes. It's just like politicians and prime minister always say, "I've got confidence in my man. I've got confidence in my man. I've got confidence in my man." And then the man says, "I've got to go and take care of my family. I wish my man all the best. He was my greatest man." That's what happens all the while, But listen, yeah, let's move on from that now, and and of course we're all BBC taxpayers, and I believe it's very important that we keep an eye on that, make sure our money is going well. David, the Indian variant is still going around, isn't it? And everybody's being.
It's not going to stop. It's a variant. It will keep going, and there'll be another variant, and another variant, and another variant. Viruses are just doing what viruses do. They change tact.
Wow.
They get fed up with the news story and they move on to the next one. So in terms of the virus in itself, I think we've got increasing confidence that the vaccines that we currently employ are working effectively. That does not mean that we change tact. I think we stick to the roadmap of recovery. That's just my belief. That things are going in the right direction, and I think we should just hold fast and hold steady. So, in regards to where we're at in regards to COVID-19, obviously the numbers people may well be aware of. 47 people today have lost their life.
Yeah.
There's 2,500, if not more, people who have tested positive for COVID-19. The numbers are still low, and people shouldn't be, particularly, I think, at this moment in time, worried about the Indian variant. In regards to vaccination rates, we're getting up to that 75% of the population who've had their first dose, which is fantastic. With the 14th of March, I think we're approaching around 72%. That's on 14th of May. I'm so back in the past now. I say everything's like Groundhog Day. 14th of May was around. We're approaching that 75% mark. And that's a significant mark because that's where we're sort of heading to in regards to, you remember about herd immunity and the benefit that will make. But that doesn't mean we should stop. Obviously, people still require their second dose vaccination. And then what we will learn over the autumn is whether or not there'll be a need for a top-up booster dose as well. So the current trials going on at the moment to recognise and influence the idea of whether we need to have a booster. And I can't give anything more than that. But
that is the booster in regards to the variants and
that's
all.
The third. Well, after the third, it's the third vaccine essentially. Whether or not there's a requirement for that, we'll figure that out going forward. But the news is positive. I can only be positive, and that's not because I'm blindly ignoring any information that's out there. It's more so based on the facts, and I think that's what we have to act on. The numbers of people who have been hospitalized hasn't gone through the roof. We're coping very well. I think that the vaccine's working very well. And I think we have to trust the science today and tomorrow, but particularly today, because I know that people can look at the news and say, oh gosh, there's a COVID-19 variant out there. It's the Indian variant rip-roaring through our society. Well, it's not rip-roaring through. People are well, and we have to recognize the fact that the COVID-19 vaccine is not a treatment. It's there to try and reduce the chance, number one, of you being very unwell with the condition, and number two, passing away with the condition. So it's there to reduce that level of burden to your health, and that's why it's there. So I'd encourage people, because I feel that the vaccine is safe and effective, to take the vaccine.
Anthony, you mentioned something last week, and we'll come on to it this week now, maybe in a bit slightly depth, is regarding light of the COVID update, as we're talking about now, and also the lockdown which has been eased. And I believe the Prime Minister is on track to keep that ease going down till we reach full proportion. But the job market is increasing now, isn't it? The job market there's a bounce there.
Well, it's picking up in the sectors that had been affected the most, in hospitality. So it's good to see there is a large requirement for those individuals to come back. I think the interview or the story I heard this evening was that obviously a lot of those individuals who did work in that particular sector came from abroad, and clearly there's going to be perhaps a sort of a lull of getting those individuals back, simply because of the issues around Brexit and getting people's visas to be able to work in the UK, and also because traditionally a lot of the people who are in the UK didn't take up some of those sort of seasonal posts that those individuals could take up. So it's good to see the bounce back in those areas.
Yes.
Which is obviously encouraging for those who need the work and for those organisations and companies that rely on their employees to carry out that particular work. So I'm very encouraged by that, and I just hope that the government and the various mayors in the UK will also provide initiatives to support people who come into work, so as to make it a bit more flexible, pay as you go, rather than some of the the figures that we know people pay every year for travel, etc.
Yes.
In order to encourage more people to come in, so that those businesses that have suffered over the last 12 months or so can start to see some recovery.
Siobhan, what is the Prime Minister saying? Because last week we gave you a directive to speak to the Prime Minister. What are they? What's the latest now? What are they doing regarding the easing of lockdown? Is he getting things on track? Or on track?
Well, if I told you what the Prime Minister said, then I'd have to kill you. No, no. I think we can only be encouraged, right, with how well our country is handling kind of coming out of lockdown. I think anecdotally, from what I've seen, whilst people are out, or rather eating in, which was very exciting this week to be able to eat indoors for the first time, people are still being very mindful of social distancing, of wearing masks and all of that. And I think that all we can do, as David said, is kind of keep doing all of these things as we slowly but surely kind of ease our way out of the situation. I think that really the important thing, and I hope government is doing that, is keeping a very, very tight and close watching brief on what is going on, so that if any kind of regression of the steps that we're taking has to occur, that it happens quickly and not in either a knee-jerk or a too late fashion, which we've gone through a couple of times before. I think that this approach, this phased out approach, is by far the best one, and kind of I hope that they continue to do that. And I'm very encouraged by what David had to say about the Indian variant and all the other potential variants that may be coming down the track, that these are manageable if we continue doing what we're doing. And also, I think another bit of good news is that GSK have announced that their vaccine, I think, is getting towards the end of its trial process. So we've got lots of options, and therefore, as much as my non-scientific brain understands, lots of different teams who've been working on it around the world, which therefore means that they can react should the variants take different types of mutations or whatever it may be, and keep those boosters ready so that we can just, go and take them. I had a great time at my vaccination. They were really lovely. So a massive shout out to the team at Guy's and Thomas's. Thank you very much.
Is it that you got a donut or candy? Which one is it?
I didn't get what?
Donut. People have been giving away donuts and candy.
You laugh there, but in the States they've been giving out hamburgers in some places.
Hamburgers, wow.
Yeah, hamburgers to encourage the uptake. So, but yeah, I've got mad respect for St. Thomas's and Guy's. That's where I did my fellowship, and yeah, it's a fantastic hospital. But yeah, working around the region, we're going hand over fist to try and get vaccines out there to the community, and I think the uptake is lower in some areas than others, but I think one of the things I will say is this: I think experience teaches wisdom, and people who've gone through this, who may well have had reservations about taking a vaccine, definitely influenced other people who didn't really think about taking a vaccine because they've seen what they've gone through. I think it's a credit that people can share their stories as well as patients and survivors, because that's one of the things I think we didn't really reflect on very well during the peak of the pandemic. Those people who actually recovered very well, may still have long lingering effects, but the fact is they recovered and they're able to share their stories, and that positivity from me again. You can see I'm Mr. Positive. I'm always Mr. Positive on the show. But it's the truth at the end of the day. People do recover, but they may well be long-lasting effects, and we don't want people to have those. So hence, we've got a free vaccine. the uptake is there. The ability to take it is there. I think, you know, it's safe and effective. So yeah.
There's a question I want to ask. Who do you think are some of? Okay, there's no doubt about this. The nurses and the doctors and the NHS are the key players. They're in the trench. They take the tops. But out of ministers, who do you think play a very good role in the sense of keeping the nation focused, leading the charge? I don't know. There's one name that stands out to me, really. I think he's doing a good job. He gets criticism sometimes. I don't know what you guys think. Matt Hancock. What do you think?
Are we talking now about the whole COVID experience?
No, I'm just
Or are
talking.
we talking about vaccination because and the vaccine rollout and everything like that? Because I think they are quite two different things. And if we're talking about the vaccine rollout and all of that, it quite clearly isn't Matt Hancock. But that's not a fault of Matt Hancock's. It's that he's not the one responsible. He's not the one leading the charge. That's Nadine. So, you know, all due respect to Nadine for doing a great job.
I just think that Matt Hancock, in a way, is a stable face, even though he goes through left and right. I don't know, you guys. What do you guys think?
I'll put on the table. It's Mr. Nando's, Mr. Eat Out to Take Out. It's Mr. Rishi.
Oh, Rishi.
Chancellor,
Rishi just come in to butter your hands. I'm talking.
No, but the Chancellor is obviously responsible for the state of the nation. I guess we're going to find out over the coming years how the state of the nation will respond financially. But obviously, he's propped up a lot of the issues that are of concern, of which one of them was procurement of vaccinations. So although he's not directly going out there and securing the contracts, he's giving the money for the state and accounting for that, as well as, you know, the furlough scheme, etc., etc. So that's who I would put forward as the person who are going to.
Anthony, do you think? I mean, the point we're at now, we're at this point now whereby we're seeing the light at the end of a tunnel. Actually, we are going through the tunnel, and it's not an oncoming train. As a politician in Jamaica one time, there's a JLP and a PNP in Jamaica one time, and there's a cartoonist that says, and the guy said, "I can see light at the end of a tunnel." I think it was Siaga Manley said that, and somebody said, "It's an oncoming train." I think we're past that stage now. Would you say now we're at this point now where just COVID is going to be with us, but we have passed through the main hurdles?
Well, gosh, I think that question really is a question for David. I mean, he's the medical man here, but I mean, just from observation,
industrial, you know,
just from observation, I mean, clearly, the success of the vaccine has enabled us to have a clear roadmap out of this thing, and providing, as David has also touched on and alluded to, there are going to be different variants that are going to be, you know, coming out of the woodwork here, there, and everywhere. We had the Kent one, we had the, you know, we had the South African one, we now got the Indian one. So, you know, it wouldn't surprise me if there was another one, you know, later on down the line. So I think the key word here is vigilant. Yes, I mean, you know, we are in a situation where there is light at the end of the tunnel, and providing all people play their part in acting accordingly with the guidelines. And I think, you know, that light will get brighter and brighter.
I went to Kent. Sorry, Anthony, please. You were saying something. You're finishing.
So I'll just conclude by saying that I think that the economy and the roadmap out of this is looking bright, and I just hope that we're able to maintain that until the June date, where things get back to a sort of full normality, where people like Siobhan can actively go into their gyms, their restaurants. And not just people like Siobhan, but myself as well, where we can go and see friends and loved ones and actually, you know, not have to wear masks, etc. So, you know, I'm waiting for that day. I'm obviously waiting cautiously, and I'm following the same guidelines, and I'm making sure that I don't, you know, I'm taking those safe steps first, rather than, you know, suddenly putting down the drawbridge and suddenly sort of coming out and saying it's all over, because it clearly is not. It's going to be something that's going to be with us, I think, for many years now. Unfortunately, but I think as long as we take the vaccine and we do what we're meant to do, I think there's a clear way out of this.
You know, someone invited me to an event this Saturday at some drink-up thing for some launch of something in Victoria, and I just made that decision and said, no, I'm not ready yet to go into this big atmosphere as yet. I went to Kent and I did a dally and I avoided the virus there. I mean, they're very good down there at my workplace, second time in a row. Somebody said, why is the government bribing the citizens? That's my question. I think that is something to do with Jamaica, because I believe the government is paying persons or giving them some incentive to take the vaccine. Another person said Siaga, well, I was referring to it with the tunnel bit there. But anyway, moving on from that, there's another thing which is going on actually right now, but I put it on tape. And I don't know if you guys have seen, no, not this one, sorry. Let me move on to this one. Black Lives Matters, sorry. Cecil Rhodes, the statue remained. Remember, there was this big quest to tearing down and ripping down statues, and Black Lives Matters, because Cecil Rhodes played a fundamental part in the whole transatlantic slavery. But what he did was, sorry,
no, that's not right.
That's all right. Well, okay, clarify. Maybe I got my
no, I'm sorry. The atrocities that Cecil Rhodes was part of or led are not to be laughed at, but it's not the slave trade. It's more modern history than that. So you may remember that there was a which is now Zimbabwe. It was called Rhodesia. At least I think it was Zimbabwe. Apologies for all those who can correct me on that one. And so post the scramble for Africa of the Europeans, and then it was carved up. Cecil Rhodes, who Englishman who studied in Oxford, then went over, as many did, and through his time there actually became very influential. And on the very negative side, his actions there, in particular how he treated local people, was very, very shocking and abhorrent. On the other hand, also, because it's all the same person, he donated a lot of money to different organizations, institutions, and what we generally call good causes back in the UK.
Yeah, because it said, the college says the statue will not be taken down due to cost and complex planning process. And you're right. Campus Rhodes, a 19th century businessman and politician in South Africa, represented white supremacy and was steeped in colonialism and racism. Has been a student at Oriel and left 100,000, about 12.5 million in today's money, to the college through his will. So he was deemed anyway as one of those key factors in the whole essence of white supremacy, slavery, in the bigger picture scheme of things. And you're correct there, maybe not directly with the transatlantic slavery, but Black Lives Matters tend to pinpoint him as one of those key faces. And the Cecil Rhodes statue must fall was a movement which was going on in Oxford. And the decision is now that they're going to keep it. And Anthony was saying, is that a slap in Black Lives Matter's face in the anniversary?
Well, no. I mean, to be honest, I think, sadly, the statues and, the road names and the buildings is quite frankly, for me personally, a sort of sideshow in the sense of, the real issues that have affected Black people for centuries now, the systemic racism that people have gone through. There's I don't really see any point in pulling down historic buildings. I think what they should do is they should maybe make plaques so that people can educate themselves on who these people are, because a lot of people perhaps who actually even passed the building of the statue of Cecil Rhodes may not have actually known his involvement and what he did. I mean, it's a bit like the other day I heard that Case University, is it Case, are renaming themselves now to another. I don't know what name they're giving themselves. I think it is Case University. Yeah. They're renaming themselves because of their links with the founder to slavery, and I think it's sad that these buildings historically are going to be, in a way we're going to sort of wipe away history, because we can't. I mean, we have to accept and England as a country has to accept their role. What do? Do we suddenly say, right, so we don't, we now know, we've watched David Ogasola's documentary about the race. We've seen that, the the UK's part in it. People have been educated. Does that mean they're now going to leave the UK because they now feel that the UK played such a prominent role in a number of different countries' problems that we see today? India, Pakistan for one, the UK as another. I mean, there's loads of areas. So I think the issue around statues is one that we shouldn't waste too much time on, in terms of sort of seeing it as a slap in the face for the way that we want to address racism. And also, to be honest, Black Lives Matter themselves, they need a little bit of a light shining on them, because so far from, and again, this is just my own observations and investigation, they haven't exactly, they seem to be quite a militant organisation wanting certain things being done, but I don't actually see what they're doing with the money that they're actually receiving.
The money is used to buy houses, Anthony.
Oh yeah, that's correct. Yeah, from what I understand, one of the leaders has bought £3 million properties in Hollywood Hills. So they've raised about 90 million, or maybe even more to date, and I haven't really seen that money going into sort of initiatives around education, support for ethnic minorities, and sort of programs to help the bigger picture around this. So Black Lives Matter, they did a very good PR in creating the awareness. Probably more so because of the George Floyd killing, but I would put more faith in more people in our own communities who are actually trying to address this on the ground rather than Black Lives Matter.
That is very correct, because I think there's some questions now about Black Lives Matter, because they've gone full on in support of the Palestinian movement at the same time. One of the reasons why I didn't brought that subject up at all, because it is such a touchy topic that you just have to stay in the middle ground and say you just wish peace in the Middle East. Nevertheless, still. But David, Siobhan sort of said something about it. David, what's your take on the whole issue about the Cecil Rhodes statue will remain, when there was a massive movement, to get rid of that statue by the Oxford team there and demonstrate?
I think I somewhat understand people's motivation for wanting to remove a statue of that particular significance.
Yes.
I say somewhat because I personally don't, because I think things like that have gone but not forgotten. You really have to be able to establish a trend, which is we recognise historical significance to certain things. It doesn't mean that we condone the actions in current day society. Societies move on. But I think pulling down a statue, for me, it doesn't particularly make sense. If the statue is pulled down, I don't know that it needs to go back up, because it just potentially causes bigger problems with trying to protect a statue, which again is an issue in itself. So to pull the statue down and remove it, I don't agree with it. I agree with Anthony in the sense that there are bigger fish to fry in my books for people out there. There's more issues that need to be looked into, and more actions that need to be taken in that regard. So, the money that has been postulated, I can't comment on, but I think it's a very easy thing to say we'll pull down the statue and actually do something that helps the society move forward. With a degree of productivity and a degree of equality and equity. So that's the issue that I have. I think that there's it's nice to drum people up and get people marching for a statue, but when things really do matter, what is actually being done? What can we see on the ground that's being done by these particular organisations? So that's where I leave it. I think that the statue is a sideshow. It doesn't really bother me. It's not going to. The statue comes down at the end of the day. It's not really going to form an equal playing field for people. It really isn't.
Yeah, Siobhan, I guess we'll say somehow that these statues should be used as teachable moments, isn't it?
Everything should be used as a teachable moment, really. In terms of, I think one of the biggest single issues I have personally is how little people are really aware and understand history and how it actually makes us who we are today. And I'm with everybody on the panel today. I don't agree with pulling down statues at all. I think that actually they are important reminders. We walk past so many of them far too often, but occasionally you may say, oh, who is that bloke, because it normally is a bloke, you know, and if there is, exactly as Anthony said, if there is actually a plaque that talks about this person in a 360 type way,
Yes.
it actually will spark something in you, and it will make you think or remember or put, you know, different things together, because it all adds up to who we are today, the opportunities or not that we have, why our societies and our communities are maybe like they are. To turn around and remove all the things that are inconvenient to us or we don't like at this time totally and utterly means that it is forgotten, actually. And also that we, I don't know, am I going to use this word? We whitewash things ultimately, is how it ends up being, rather than actually holding whether it's things that have happened, it's people, you know, it's us accountable, but also recognizing that we are human beings and there is a yin and a yang, a plus and a minus, you know, a heaven and a hell, angels on us as well. So teachable moments are around us all the time, but they are only teachable if we treat our lives, our experiences and what's going on as teachable with each other, and we have that ongoing dialogue. I think for me, I want to just point something out. I'm sorry, I know I'm talking a lot, but there is a difference between Black Lives Matter UK, and another Black Lives Matter in the UK. So as much as I'm very skeptical of most of it, I do want to be fair and treat in particular, I think, the latest iteration of Black Lives Matter in the UK says it is a non-partisan organisation, and it has a slightly different modus operandi as the one that was very much alive and was asking for donations this time last year. So just to put that out there to viewers, that, you know, they are all different and have slightly different approaches. But at the end of the day, really, you are wasting all of your capital on something like statues, as opposed to focusing on, exactly as was said before, you know, work in the community, engagement, lobbying, government relations, all of that jazz, you know, and grassroots level in particular, grassroots level work.
Yes.
I just don't have time for it. You are wasting the space and the opportunity that you have been given at this time.
So the last thing I'd just like to add, and I think
Yes.
it's a nice talk, nice thing to mention sort of the historical aspects of things. We're kind of repeating the same mistakes in that, you know, a lot of history is just kind of dampened down, forgotten about, left out, and without making this into a sort of a racial kind of entity, you know, a lot of African history has been sort of watered down and not really spoken about. And I do think that you're kind of repeating that same mistake by moving away the statues, not talking about it, not really understanding the historical concept that brought this into fruition. So that repetition in itself is not a good thing. We should really, whilst our brains can only take on so much, we should really try and not recreate those steps of ignoring history and reducing it and watering it down to actually try and understand history and actually, you know, how deep rooted it is. It doesn't just start with, say, Black history and slavery. It's before that. You know, there's much more to it. So that's what I would say from a historical standpoint. We don't want to recreate those same mistakes.
You know, two persons said something. Black Lives Matter isn't really about Black lives. This person's from the States that runs by the alphabet people. Black Lives Matter is really about the feminist movement and the alphabet people. So that's someone from the States. I'm just repeating what person say. But SIOBHAN, I know one statue that you like, though. You like a statue of James Bond, isn't it?
Well, it depends. I mean, not if it's George Lazenby, no.
well, it could be Idris Elba eventually. So, you know, so at least we're going to go to the cinemas very soon. But guys, before I wrap up, let me there's a topic which is going on presently on the television at present, and it's about this issue here. Black children wrongly sent to special schools in the 1970s. And it's presently going on. I said, oh, sugar, but we had to do this show. do you guys know about this thing? I mean, I wasn't in the UK during that period of time. Anthony, can you shed any light to that, into that issue there? Because it seemed like they were on another form of study or so.
Well, I've got to say, someone, I'm not quite sure why you came to me on that one, because that's 1970. I'm not that old. I appreciate you actually asking me for my opinion on this one. I haven't watched the program. I'm going to watch it right after. I don't know anything about it. I've seen the headlines, and I'm going to watch it straight after, and to find out a little bit more. So on this particular occasion, normally I've got to comment on most things. On this one, I've got to pass.
Well, in the 1960s and 70s, hundreds of black children were labeled as educationally subnormal and wrongly sent to school for pupils who were deemed to have low intelligence. For the first time, some former pupils have spoken about their experience for a new BBC documentary. So, ladies and gentlemen, and I don't know if Anthony or SIOBHAN knows about it, because I just heard about it today and I just dropped this on the program here. But it's very interesting, and because one of the persons actually was sent there, and based on the fact that he had some issues with his teeth or whatever, they call him dunce. A lot of different factors. I'm just skirting over the whole issues. And this is what he said: the health issues led him to being perceived as having learning disabilities and being recommended for a special school, yet no evidence or explanation of his disability were given to him nor his parents. Could we say then, in a way, that lots of things are coming out into the air, lots of issues being unearthed are coming out, is a good thing now, so we can put it all on the table to make a better future for children?
Well, I think we need that in any space, gender, children, the issues around race. I mean, I think we need, a good, and this is the reason why I think SIOBHAN and David were talking about the statues. We need all of this content to be out in the open. Otherwise, you can't discuss it. I mean, if you have a situation where everything is whitewashed and you simply present the finished vanilla article, then you're not going to learn anything from it. I mean, you're just going to be none the wiser. So I think you do need to understand all these things, warts and all, in order to be able to form opinions and to educate and actually learn from those things and move forward.
That's a powerful point. David?
Yeah, I agree, and I would hope. I've not yet watched the program, so I can't really comment on
Yes.
But seeing the struggles of people, obviously, of Black and Asian background in times gone by, and how things have evolved over time, I've got to look at it in a positive, in a degree of positivity. There is one particular thing I will say, is that despite the struggles of this particular issue, people did make it out, and there was one really enlightening picture that I can see here of a person that graduated, even having gone to that particular journey. I'm not saying that's reflective of everybody, but it shows the power of the human spirit, power of the human mind, to be able to traverse such difficult scenarios, but still make it, for want of a better word, and form it and have a graduation at university. So that's the thing I think it shows me, is that we will have come a long way. We know there have been historical injustices that would have occurred over time, and there still are problems that will occur now, but we are moving in the right direction, and that movement still has to proceed, and people still have to be able to be on a level playing field, whether you are a Black man or a Asian woman or whatever that is. We need equality, and that's what we really should strive for as people.
And this is one of the reasons why it's so important for us to be involved in the whole aspect of leadership, politically, locally, schools, governors, and everything like that. That plays a fundamental role, isn't it?
It helps to drive change, doesn't it? And that's the whole idea. Giving people that ability to proceed and go forward.
Yeah.
I would just add one last point on that, SIOBHAN, very quickly. I mean, obviously, you stood as a councillor, as I did. We were up against each other a few years ago. And I think, the key thing here is actually, rather than just simply sitting around criticising, be part of the solution. Get out there and try, join, become a councillor, join get involved in other community projects. Actually, be part of the solution, and don't sit there and simply always criticize. I think that's what you've got to do. You've got to get involved rather than simply just sitting back and criticizing.
Yeah, neighborhood watch and all those sort of things. It might seem even insignificant, but those small little things make a fundamental role. And of course, Siobhan, as that access directly to the Prime Minister, plays all these fundamental roles. Right, Siobhan, what's your last word?
Yeah, I think, and like the others, I don't know enough about this particular topic, but it does look very shocking. And just quickly reading the article about it in the BBC, it said, you know, the educational system fueled and legitimized the idea that Black Caribbean children were less intelligent than other children. And this is why so many of them ended up in these special schools. And there are, unfortunately, so many things from that time that, you know, did make us second-class citizens, right? And, you know, looking at it from a positive perspective, we are not there anymore, thank goodness. However, there is still so much to do, and I can only reiterate what has been said, and it is about being there at the table, at all of the tables. And in fact, you know, forget the Prime Minister and the cabinet and all of that. Really and truly, what is influential is what is happening in your local area. So this is my plea to everybody.
Yes.
Don't go, oh, it's not for me, it's not for people like me. Well, of course it's not for people like you, unless you're saying, I am one of the people who wants to participate and wants to be involved. And there are so many ways to do it. And I'm just going to put in a special plug for school governors. I am the chair of a primary school, and I can honestly say it is one of the best things that I have ever done. And I encourage everybody to find something in their community to participate in and to show up for, because it is teachable moments in so many ways, so that we do not repeat the past.
Fantastic. Well, that's a good position to leave on. And thank you so much, and congratulations for being in that significant role, which is much more higher position than advisor to the Prime Minister. You know what I mean? Anyway, guys, any last word? I'll just wrap up now. Anthony's got to get his hot coffee, or what is it, coffee or chocolate you like, Anthony?
Yeah, and good night to you as well, SIOBHAN. Thank you.
Look, what's beautiful is that you two are still battling today. This isn't yesterday, this is now. We're still battling. I like it.
All right, guys. Have a good night. And thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, those on Instagram, Natural Beauty, thank you so much for that. That's why my children was homeschooled, and so are my grandchildren. Wow. We were and we are the inventors. We have been indoctrinated in our history. We were and we are the investors, but the oppressors didn't like that. Okay, so conversation going on over there on Instagram. We want to join it over there. And for Facebook and YouTube, thank you so much, guys. Have a good weekend. See you next week, and have a good night, ladies and gentlemen. Here we go. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you so much for coming on tonight, and remember to like and subscribe to the SIOBHAN Show, and I will see you again. Thank you, and thank you.